Thanks for coming to the high availability meeting for October 4th. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can take a quick look at, this is the PR opened by Sanjay, and he wanted to address comments. So like Marianne said, this is a bigger one for sure. So this one would probably need to be looked at by the next time we talk next week. And what did you notice, Marianne? Just that it was larger and had a lot of stuff in there?
I mean, it has all of the, at least the list has all of the things that we were talking about. Update the
Awesome.
SI APIs as I
Awesome.
requested for, and missing sections. So by next week, I will do it myself, and I will ask everyone else who sees something that is still not covered to at least point out.
Okay. All right. So everyone, do you need me to put that in the chat window, or you can find it, I suppose? Okay. Then I'll go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and pull this screen over. And so, sorry, I'm trying to manage like people coming into the call. Plus, Lisa. Okay, so Lisa's here. All right, and so Guohan, you wanted to talk more about metadata policies and expectations?
Sorry, what's that? The metadata things?
Yeah, so last week when we ended the call, you said, hey, next time we should talk more on metadata policies and expectations. I just took a note.
Yeah. I saw there was some questions on, what are those metadata that is coded in those packets? And what are those policies being used, whether they are optional or not? I remember AMD mentioned that some of the echo action is a requirement to be encoded. Then I guess there were some questions from the audiences why those are required. Can AMD explain that?
Okay. And so if we don't have, I mean, we've got Mukesh here from AMD. We've got Balki and Vijay. So is this something you guys can talk about today, or do we need to wait for Sanjay? And if you're talking, you might be on mute, Mukesh. Or
yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in the PR that has been raised, there is this list of metadata that is being carried in the flow sync request. I mean, we can go over that, or you guys can go over that, and we can discuss it next week. I mean, either way is fine.
Okay. So Guohan, do you want to take some time, like with Marianne as well, that Marianne's going to do, and just go over this number 244 and see if it addresses things for next week? If you're talking, you might be on mute.
Briefly look, I saw the, that the changes does not include the discussion of the metadata. Or is this included? I mean, I'm not. At least, what I see is not included in the metadata, right? So, it doesn't discuss anything about the metadata.
It is. It is. Yeah. So it is there. I don't know in this format. I don't know. I'm not able to. I mean, you can search for policy lookup results. It should be
like policy lookup results. Okay.
Yeah, but it says, the actual flow lookup policy format will depend on underlying implementation, hence the format are not defined. But it's not clear what the other policy lookup results mean here, right? So
So policy lookup results, it's basically the ACL lookup, right? To allow the flow or the deny the flow based on whatever policies like VNA based policies that are configured. So those security lookup results are carried in the metadata, the mapping and route lookup results, the rewrite information, whatever for the rewrite for the source IP, dest IP, source port, dest port, VNI, and whatever metering that has been chosen, it's also carried to the peer.
So even metering, I saw the metering was not carried.
No.
Not
The metering data is not carried, but what is the metering that has to be used for this flow?
Yes, so since
That
your metering data is not synchronized, the class is.
whatever the metering class that is chosen
Mhm.
for that flow.
Okay, why is that? Why is this mandatory? Like you know, policy results from security lookup. Why is that? I think there were some questions on, you know, why this is a mandatory things.
No, basically, yeah, what we are trying to do here is the configuration is not consistent on these nodes, right, at any time. Like, I mean, it is continuously changing because the controller is pushing it at different times, right, to these two nodes. So when you set up a connection, basically we want to sync the connection with the same set of policy lookup results and other rewrites. We don't want to go and basically do another lookup there in the peer, because if you do the lookup, it's not guaranteed to give the same results over there, right? So that's why it is
Yeah, no,
carried as.
I get that, but I thought, you know, like after the switchover, you will do a, you know, flow resimulation. At that point in time, whatever the policy lookup results will be corrected, right?
No, so what? See the reconcile. Okay. So after switchover, basically there is a reconcile event that is pushed from the controller. That is to say, basically from now on you can go and reconcile, because this particular node has caught up to the configuration level as what it was in the previous node. But basically it's not like I mean, the way what we do is, it's not like we go and do reconciliation of all the flows at that time, right? Because if you go and do everything and fix up everything at that time, then it is going to be a bit, there will be a lot of disruptions at that time. So basically the reconcile event, the way to use it is, um, so basically say, let's say there is a flow that has been synced from node 1 to node 2. And let's say it is using a configuration at particular snapshot, right? Let's say version 1. And then so we sync that connection at that version to the peer. And then let's say the node 1 goes down, and then node 2 basically takes over. And then let's say at that point of time in node 2, the configuration level is actually at version 2, right? It's not at version 1. It's in fact it's ahead of node 1, let's say, right? Node 2. But we won't do any fix up, because we really don't know whether it would be at version 2 or it will be at a version 0. So we wait for the reconciliation event. When the reconciliation event comes, at that point of time, we check the config level of the connection with the config level what is there in the local node. If it is already in version 1 level, then there is no need to do any fix up for that, because it's already we already sync it at that level, right? Whatever level, because we carry everything as part of the metadata. Only those flows which are not at the level where the node 2 is at, like, I mean, the latest level, whatever the node 2 is at, only those connections we go and do the fix up.
So is it fair to say that this is an optimization?
So sorry. So I think the whole document didn't introduce the concept of the configuration versioning. Is there anywhere that introduced this concept in the document?
See, the versioning and all is basically implementation specific, right? You have to basically find out what is the config level you are at, because there is no version that is coming from the controller actually.
I don't get it. Yeah, okay, so then how do you determine the version then? Because you know, how do you know? Okay, so when I set up this connection, I'm using the policy version 100, and the next one I set about using policy version 101, and you
No,
keep track of those
yeah,
versioning and.
yeah, internally, whenever config gets pushed, internally we are maintaining the config version. So we are coordinating between these nodes, and we determine what is the config level we are at.
So we're not saying how we're doing that. We're just saying that it's being done.
Yeah, I mean,
So I'm still not getting. Okay, so let's have we have a concrete example. For example, this node A, right? So there's the ACO policy is deny. Okay, so when we replay that scene packet on the on the standby node, maybe at that point in time, the versioning saying, okay, that version, this should be allowed. So therefore, on the primary, you have deny, and on the backup, you have allow. Actually, for the deny, we probably didn't set up the flow in tree, right? So I guess then what? So I guess I'm trying to understand, do I have a concrete case, must be accept, right? So only when the primary says accept, then we forward the packet to the backup, right? So if it's accepted, then we forward it to the backup, and then the only difference on the backup would be that it is a deny instead of accept. So in that case, the backup will not set up the connection. Is that the case that we're dealing with, or what is the case we're dealing with?
no, Guohan, there are multiple cases. So see, only accept. Only for the case of accept, we create the connection, and when we create the connection, it is synced to the standby. But there can also, whenever there is a deny connection, it is not even created in the active, so it won't be created in the standby. That is correct. But that is you are talking about the case where when initially the connection gets set up, right? But while the connection is in place and it has been set up, it has been synced, someone can go and change the configuration to from then on to deny those flows, right? So we need to go and act on those connections,
Okay.
right?
But
So
okay,
yeah,
okay. So let's say on the primary previous was accepted, now it says deny. So you remove that flow, and
and
in
we have to
that case,
sync.
sorry,
Mhm.
in that case, are you going to send a packet to the peer and actually being ask him to remove that flow?
Yeah, basically we have to keep the state in sync, right, between the nodes. Yeah, we have to remove the
But
connection in the
how
other side
those
as well.
packet are triggered? I thought it always the packet we're forwarding is always a scene packet. So it's not only the scene packet. So how do you?
So, so for the connection setup, tear down, I mean connection setup and tear down, those are the control packets, right? If you take TCP, those are all the SYN packets, the FINAC packets, hack packets. In addition to that, the configuration change basically can change the configuration. I mean, can change the connection state.
Yeah.
Like a rewrite can be changed or other things can be changed. So those things are whenever a state changes in the connection, we have to sync that state with a standby. So that will warrant flow sync between the nodes.
So which mechanism are we using? Using the control path or using the data
Yeah.
path to do that thing?
Data, it's a data path. Basically, the data packets will be sent again in the same way as SYN packet as flow sync request to the standby, and the state will be synced.
But at that point of time, there's no data packet, right? So
No, no. Only when data path a data path packet comes. See, whenever. Okay, you can implement
Why
it
don't
in.
we, Balki, just quick thing, I think it'll be good if we have some example. For example, right now, it seems like what you're talking about it is a flow resimulation, right? So let's say a connection is already established and everything is hunky-dory, everything is flowing fine, and suddenly a configuration changes. That configuration change is a policy change that would really mean that, okay, you have to tear down, let's say, this connection, meaning that you cannot admit this one because with the previous policy, you were able to admit that connection. With the new policy, you have to basically, deny this connection. Now, in order to deny this connection, you have to tear down this connection. And in order to tear down this connection, you need to tear down the connection on both active and standby, right? So in order to do this thing, right, you are the one who is initiating. You meaning that, okay, let's say an active person who is going to initiate either the resetting of the connection or whatever be the case. Are you saying that, when you reset it, you're going to play the same packet to to the peer, which is of the connection, which is some other place, and also to send it out to some message you're going to send it out to the standby, which is not going to be a data packet, as Guohan is mentioning. Perhaps it's basically a control packet saying that, okay, reset the connection, because with the new policy, I have to tear down this connection. Does that example make sense, or do you have any other example that can actually clarify this?
No, I can explain the same example. So basically, okay, it's again our implementation specific, right? In the sense you can implement how you want to when you want to make the state change, whenever there is a configuration change, and how you want to sync into the peer, right? That is, you can do it in different ways. So what we do is, whenever there is a configuration change, right, we don't go and immediately change the state in the connection, because the connection basically needs a state change only when the packet is received, right? And we want to forward the packet. So whenever the packet gets received, at that point, we go and fix up the connection with a new configuration, and that is the packet which experienced a state change will be synced to the peer, like how a SYN packet is synced, and the state is updated in the peer as well.
So,
But this is
Balki, last
there's no
time
packet. There is
I
no packet which is actually changing the state, right? It is actually the configuration which is changing the
No,
state.
no. So yeah, what I meant was, see, when okay, let's say there is a connection and it is not seeing any packet, right? And it is there. Configuration changes, you won't go and fix up you won't go and update the connection yet. The configuration is updated, all your data structures are updated, but the connection is not modified yet. Whenever packet comes to that connection, the first packet that we receive in the connection after the configuration change, right? That will go and trigger the update to the connection.
Last week I had asked the resimulation question, whether we will use gRPC if it is like offline because the configuration is changing and there are no packets coming, or are we going to use the data path sync, So I guess this answers the question that once the configuration change happens, which is offline, not related to the data sync, you just wait till the packet comes and then apply the change, and then it becomes like a data sync after that point.
Correct. Because
Data
see, the configuration change for the connection, it's basically it has to be activated, and we need that update for the packet that is coming, right? So we basically we wait for the packet to come and then we go and update it.
But why we're using this way? Because what is the benefit of doing, if you know, okay, so this, because you have to mark this connection in a certain state, saying, okay, now the control plan deleted. We're waiting for a new packet come in to get, then to send a notification to the peer. In that case, which connection, you know, is changing the state. Why not using the control plan to sync that state to the peer? What is
No,
the reasoning here?
no, what is the, see, we are actually syncing only the connection, right? We are not syncing the config state between these. Configuration sync is taken care by the control,
No,
by
I
the,
understand that, right? So okay, so you receive a new configuration. This new configuration mark a few connections, tens of whatever the connection to be, stale state, right? So to be removed. in this particular case. So in this case, why not use the control channel to sync all this state to be removed to the peer and through that channel to do it? Why do you need to wait for the new packet to come and then sync the state? What if the new packet doesn't come?
And is it the data packet or the control packet, right? If you're looking at data packet, then what if it is the deny case, in the sense the controller sent that the VNI is no longer applicable for this card, then we'll not get the data packet because, the VM is no longer going to send based on the controller
No, see,
advertisement.
when there is no packet for a connection, the packet is going to be idly aged, right? There is no,
You mean
see, all
connection,
this,
yeah.
yeah, the connection going to be idly aged. See, why do we have to go and update the connection when there is a configuration change? Because we want to forward the packet properly. So only when the packet comes, it is enough that we go and update the connection when see, there are the scale of connections is quite a lot. If you have to go and update each and every connection at the time of configuration change, there is no guarantee that you are going to finish it before the connection comes. Anyway, you have to, when the connection comes, you have to make sure that we update the connection because of the configuration change and forward it properly.
But you
So
have to
basically,
update, sorry, but you have to update your hardware for each and every connection affected by the policy change, right?
we have to, that's what I'm saying is, basically what is the I mean the update is basically to forward the packet properly, right? With the latest configuration. So
No,
the
so
update is
let's Balki, just I think what's going on is that if we take a step back and say, hey, our forwarding pipeline had certain assumptions and certain way we thought that we have explained it, right? For example, there is a slow path and there is a fast path, right? So slow path is essentially that what we talk about, this connection tracking, and then where we are going to really evaluate all the policies like the routing and ACL and so forth. And then once we have admitted it, then it becomes a fast path. In a fast path, whenever there is a hit, you just forward it, right? Now, what we are saying here, as Guohan is mentioning, that if there is a configuration change, and then you have this established flow where you are not evaluating any policy. However, you basically, because of config change, you have to mark it, some flag there that in the fast path, if you are anytime you're going to basically go ahead and hit in the fast path, in the flow table, and if there is this flag set, then you are going to do whatever you basically said, that, hey, I have to go ahead and deny it, and then, take this connection away, and then, synchronize with the standby and so forth. But since you had to go through and mark those flows anyways, right? So you are going through the processing regardless at the time of configuration change. Why not go ahead and remove it? Why this lazy processing in this case? What are we really achieving it at that time? That's probably the question, right?
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
so yeah, so there is no so again, yeah, it's basically the implementation, right? See, you don't have to go and mark it then and there. Basically, whenever you create the connection, you maintain the config level at which the connection was created. And whenever you are receiving the packet, there are data structures that are being updated as part of the configuration, not the connection. So when you get the packet, you refer to what is the config level that is cached in the connection, and what is the config level of objects that is there currently in the data path. If there is a discrepancy between them, then that says that the config level has been updated. Then you trigger, basically from the fast path you go to a slow path for that connection. Does it make sense whatever I said, or?
Maybe no, I don't get it. I mean, what is this configuration level? I mean, I'm trying to understand it. Is it config level per connection state, or how this? Because config level, I would imagine there are thousands of policies, right? So if you change one policy, how do you know which connections being applied by this particular policy?
So let me give one example, right? So there are these policies that are associated with the VNIC. And whenever there is a, let's say we have a configuration for a VNIC, we create a version. Let's say you can create something like a version 0 or something for that VNIC, and whatever connections that are created during that time, you can maintain that version. You can cache that version of configuration in your connection, saying that this connection has been created with the config level or config version of 0. And now let's say user comes and changes the policies for that VNIC, and basically then we update our local version for that.
So what is
VNIC.
sorry, what is the VNIC? Is that ENI
It's
or
ENI.
ENI, sorry, yeah, ENI.
okay?
So then when the user comes and updates the config for the ENI, we update our local version for the ENI, config version for the ENI. So now basically the connection has been created and cached with the version of 0, whereas the current version for the ENI, config version for the ENI will say not 0, right? Something 1 or 2, whatever it is. So that basically will trigger that, will tell data path that the connection is using the stale config. It has to be updated to the latest config. So it has to go through a fix-up.
So let me ask you this, right? So because let's say, ENI can associate like 1,000 policy, right? So then, if are you saying if there's a single policy change in that 1,000 policies, then you will update the version from 1 to 2. And in this case, for example, this ENI could associate with millions of connections. For each and every connection, they will know there's a configuration change because it changed from 1 to 2. So what are we going to do with all these millions of connections? Are we all going to go through some kind of control plan to do a lookup to see whether there's a discrepancy or not? And how do we determine which connection affected? So I still don't get it.
No, I mean, see, even if you say, let's say there is a configuration change, right? So you are, when you create a connection, right? It's not like there are lots and lots of configuration, right? That is associated with the connection. It could be using policies, rewrite related stuff, all those things. I mean, the way you maintain this config level is, you are not saying that this connection is associated with this particular policy, with this particular rewrite. Like, I mean, a very specific configuration, right? What we maintain is at the ENI level there are these configuration, and the flows that are associated with the ENI are having this corresponding configuration level. Whenever a policy for that ENI has been changed, the associated flows for that ENI has to go through fix-up. It's not like all the connections will go through, only those flows that are associated for that ENI will go through fix-up.
Yes, but even with that approach, right, cause the millions of entry a ENI to go path to the slow path evaluation, right? You are saving update, but you also re-evaluation. That means fast path back slow path for millions
Hey,
entry.
Lisa,
Depends
you're
on how many are
breaking.
associated with that ENI.
Yeah, Lisa, you're breaking up a little bit. Maybe,
Oh.
Hanif, could you reword Lisa's question, or one with a good connection?
Can you hear me better now?
Not really.
No.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
No,
Hanif,
sir,
do you
I'm
get what
sorry,
she's saying?
No, I'm sorry. I was also not able to basically, hear that. So
okay.
maybe just,
One more time, Lisa. Yeah.
Let me. Is it better now?
It's still in and out, so if you move or,
Okay, let me
probably.
one dial and then.
So still, right? So, even for one ENI, there could be millions of connections. Are you saying at that moment, all the, the million connections are all dirty and they are going through what?
I think what he's saying is that the fix-up is done like per packet on that connection, right? Like if there's millions of connections, but like, a packet comes in, then the fix-up is done. Then the next packet comes in for a different flow, then the fix-up is done on that flow, right? It's being done like per packet as as the packets come in. If there's like very idle connections or very infrequent connections, then they're not like fixed up until a packet comes in. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
See, then as soon as configuration changes, we don't go fix up the connection. The connection has to be updated only when the packet, at least we need the updated state only whenever the packet comes, right? So we basically we defer it.
Sorry. And all those packets have to go to the control plane? I mean,
Not all the packets.
Slow pass for that
No,
fix up?
Go through the slow path.
Yeah, it
Not
has
all
to go through the slow path. So this is a very interesting, guys. This is a very interesting, approach to this problem.
Conversation.
I think I'm beginning to understand. Yeah, I'm beginning to
Sorry,
understand that.
let's try to understand.
Did this
Yeah,
thing. So
Sorry. Let's try to
I think
understand
let's
what
make
exactly here, right? So I'm still not quite clear. So what? Okay, so there's a configuration change, and all the connection detect there's a configuration change, and then for the subsequent packet that belongs to those connection, what do we do here? We send those packet, the first packet to the control plane, to the slow pass, and then do the processing, or
This will cause us from path.
Hey, sorry,
to
Lisa.
slow path, right?
Let's not judge here, right? So let's just try to understand what exactly they were doing here, right? So can we get the question answered? What do we do on those subsequent packet?
Yeah, subsequent packet, you can, see, we today we send subsequent packets. Basically, it has to go through the slow path. It has to finish the fix up. As soon as the fix up gets done, the connection will be at the same config level. So whatever packets that we see during that time, either you have the option of dropping them, or you can still pass them up to your slow path and then get it fixed. I mean, it all depends on how whether
don't say Balki, don't say it's an option. So say this thing that whatever will the result of the slow path processing, because what happens is that right? Is it not true? Because what happens is that here's the steps that I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong. So what happens is that the configuration changes, you mark the connection to the new configuration version, and when the next packet comes, whenever it comes in, right? Now you're processing it as if it's not a flow table hit as a fast path, but instead it's like a slow path processing. You're going to do the evaluation of all those, policies as if you had done it at the connection establishment time. Although it's not a connection establishment packet, it's just a regular data packet. At that particular time, you're going to do all this ACL and routing, all of those things that you have to go through the slow path. And if that were to mean that, okay, you have to deny it, then it means that you are going to go ahead and then try to reset the connection. And if not, then you admit it and everything goes off. If it is basically dropped, then you are going to reset and also to synchronize with the standby to say that okay, correct me if this is not the correct understanding and if there is something else is happening.
No, actually your voice was breaking, and if I'm not able to hear you properly, can you please repeat that?
I think what you described is probably correct, but I think that there's one difference, is that the slow path for this kind of config change is like not like reinserting a brand new flow into the flow table. The flow already exists in the flow table. It's just being updated by the slow path based on maybe reevaluating the policy, but it's not like allocating and inserting and updating like a new flow in the flow table. It's already existing in the flow table.
Exactly.
So it's
exactly.
So it's a slow path. It's a slower path, but it's not like a brand new packet for a flow that's never been seen before.
I have a question.
It's basically a state update. It's not like we are doing the heavy weight of again setting up the connection and things like that. It's basically going and updating the existing connection. The connection will still be there in the data path. Yes.
That sounds fine. But how do you force it to go to slow path?
Sorry?
How do you force that packet to go to slow path? Because we won't know unless the when the config change happens, you're marking the flows in the background. You know, that's the open that's still there.
No, as I said, right, when the connection in the connection state, you maintain what is the config version at which it was created or it was last updated. And whenever we receive the packet, before we forward the packet, we look at the version that is maintained in the connection and the current version of the data structures that is there in the data path for the objects that we refer to, right, are being used in the connection.
So
So
is that a
even if
version?
there's
Sorry, is that a versioning state per connection, or is that the whole ENI has a version state?
ENI has the version.
so
So
for each
okay, so
flow entry,
sorry. So then I don't understand this one, right? So then if it's a per ENI, then I guess this is also opportunistic, like because how do you then how do you reconcile, say, okay, the version for the control plane hardware is a sync, because if you set up a timer, it may not be the case that all the connection you have will be seeing a packet, because the reconcile only happens when you see a packet, right? So what if if the version is a whole ENI, ENI has a version, then how do you decide, okay, now my hardware is all synchronized with a new configuration? You get my question?
Is there like a polling that happens? Do you poll all of it and make sure they're in sync?
No. Their reconcile is packet driven. Whenever there's a packet, it will driven that reconcile. But how do you guarantee that if your versioning is not per connection based, then not updating at the connection level. If it's a whole ENI level, then how do you decide that the reconcile is done for all the connections belong to that ENI?
No, so yeah, so as the fix up, see, even before going to reconcile, right? So just how do you know whether the connection is updated for the connection update or not, right? So that's why that's what, as I said, let's say ENI, when you create a configuration for a ENI, you can have, I mean, internally you can maintain some version for the ENI, let's say version 1, let's say. When you create a connection, you cache that version in the connection, saying that this connection is using version 1 config of the ENI. Now, when user comes and changes the configuration for the ENI, the version will be updated. And now, after that update of config, let's say packet is received by the connection for the ENI, then it will basically see that the version maintained in the connection, whatever the config version is version 1. So the connection is basically set up based on version 1, whereas the config version is at 2. So it will say that it has to, the connection state has to be updated. So that packet will go through the policy lookup and it will fix up the connection and then it will go out.
Yeah,
so in case of
your versioning is per connection, right? So every connection.
No. The versioning is per ENI and it is maintained in the connection. It's
so
not
in
per
case
connection.
of hit, you will look up the ENI version, right? Meaning when you do a lookup, and that the lookup itself will contain the version check as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what.
Sorry. Clarify this one. So at each connection, you will maintain the version that when the connection is created, right? So for that one. So for example, when the connection is created, at that time the ENI version is 1, so this connection version will be 1, right? So then if its ENI is at the point of creation is 2, then this connection is configuration version is 2, right? So for every connection, you will have a cached version, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But Balki, why do you have to do this thing? I mean, just imagine. What I see this thing is that for all the connections that you have on any ENI, if you have a marking that, hey, it needs to go through slow path, right? Because of some configuration change. I mean, the configuration may have changed 10 times before that, right? But if all you do is you just mark it that, the next packet, I need to, instead of going through the fast path, I need to go through the slow path. That marking, just one flag.
We are not doing marking.
You, right?
No, we are not. We are not.
No, marking in the sense that Marking, of course, you have to do the marking because whenever the config changes, you have to sweep and then go ahead and change the version number as you basically suggested. What if you do just one marking, right?
No, that's what. Okay, this is
It's
going
all
too
up
much
to the
into.
implementation. Right?
Yeah, this is
It's
going
all
too
up
much
to the
into our implementation, right? I mean, we don't go and mark each and every connection. We don't do that.
Then how
See,
do you
I mean, see
basically
this,
ensure that, okay,
see this fix upping. I mean, connection fix up. It's. I mean, you can do it in different ways. I don't know whether we need to discuss that, but it's kind of very implementation specific. For this flow sync discussion, I don't know whether we have to go into the implementation details of how you fix up the connection, right? I mean, depending on your hardware and this thing, yes, you can, as and when configuration gets updated, you can go and sweep the connection and then you can go and fix it up if you find that to be optimal for your implementation, right? Or you can do it based on a packet driven mechanism, which whatever we are doing, right? But that doesn't mean that as soon as config update happens, we go through each and every connection and go and mark it. We don't do that.
So bulky, the whole requirement is that once there is a config change, then the established flow entry will not be used for forwarding, right? It will basically go through the new connection path, correct?
Yeah.
You don't even have to do.
No new connection path. It will go through just the slow path processing. You're not going to be establishing a new connection by itself again, right? You just all you say that, okay, the next packet is going to trigger me to go reevaluate the policy, but I'll just basically, it's just any other data packet as opposed to, this connection establishment, right?
Correct. So yeah, when you say new connection, yeah, I meant slow path, but yeah, we don't set up the connection or anything like that. It's just that it will update the state in the connection.
I don't know what's the difference, but it's basically, I agree. It's a processing that we need to do that will result in creating the flow entry.
No. Flow entry is already there. We don't tear down the flow entry. See, the existing flow entry will still be there because the tuple doesn't change, right? The flow entry will be there, but there can be whatever because of the configuration change, there can be changes to the state in the connection, right? Like some rewrite can be changed, something like that. It's nothing to do with. I mean, you don't have to update the flow per se.
Yeah, but you don't know that, right? The only thing that you know is the config is dirty. This flow may or may not be valid after that once you reprocess the config change.
No. If it completely changes the tuple itself, then it is kind of a new connection, right? It's not like the incoming tuple is coming with some parameters, right? Source IP, dest IP.
My point is, at the time of flow lookup, how do you know whether it's a small change or a complete flow change? You at the end, the reality is you will not use the flow entry as it exists at that point. That's all.
The way you have the flow state is, whether it is I mean, it is going and updating the flow tuple itself, right? Or it is affecting, if it is changing only the rewrite information, right? I mean, if it is changes the incoming flow tuple itself, then at that point of time, it is actually becoming a totally new connection. It's not like existing connection, right? Then you have to let the new connection to come through in a right way, right? Starting from synag like that. You cannot go and set up the connection without a new connection through a packet that is seen in the middle of the lifetime of a connection.
So Balki, I have a quick question. I'm still a little bit on this one about this version number, and then so you said the version number is maintained on per ENI, and there is some version number associated with the connection. But the question here is that for any flow entry in the flow table, right? When a packet comes in after the config change, what triggers it to go through the flow path processing if there is no, you have not marked it? What is the flow? I mean, I just think you can just, go ahead and go for the steps.
Okay, so yeah, so the flow, flow is basically flow is the connection, right? Which is maintaining the version. there is also a version under the ENI. That is the version, the current version, configuration version for the ENI. So when you, so now I'm going into the implementation, right? So when there is a configuration change, you go and change the version in the ENI. You don't go and change the version in all the connection. That will happen as part of the fix-up.
Okay, now this fix-up, when does that fix-up happen?
The fix-up will happen when it sees basically the version in the connection is not matching with the version in the ENI.
Only when the packet is triggered. It's triggered by the packet
yeah,
only?
it's triggered by the packet. Yes.
No. So so when was that last updated connection? Sorry, when was the last updated version number inside the connection? When was the previous? Whenever the previous packet happened, is that the case?
Whenever it was set up with the setup packet, or whenever it was when the last packet was when the last packet triggered the fix up, the last
so
fix
got
up.
it. I get it now. I get it. So so now that actually makes sense that everything is basically packet triggered, and then
So that's what
you're trying to. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's what this is very implementation specific, right? I don't know. I mean, if we should go into that level of details, I mean, this is more of our implementation. I mean, which is
but
not
other people
needed
can
for
do
this.
it other ways, right?
And
so can we somehow split this proposal to what is absolutely necessary for this synchronous state replication, and what is the possible optimization, or what is vendor specific? Because I think that we started a conversation why we have metadata there, and we went to all the flow resimulation. Then we discovered that there is some vendor specific way to do the flow resimulation. And all that is somehow part of the proposal, which is not actually here. It is not, and I understand why it is not listed in here, because it is vendor-specific implementation. I agree with that. But I don't see a clear line between what is the core of the proposal and what is considered to be an implementation on your side.
Yeah, I think I agree that. So I think maybe the missing part is like, okay, because they mentioned those policy, and it's unclear whether those are optional or vendor specific implementation, or versus is required, right? So going back to the question, right? So it seems like carrying metadata is a way, for a specific vendor to address those, state synchronization. But there can be other ways to address it, right? So not necessarily using the metadata to do the carrying, right? So
no, so the reconciliation also, sorry, moment. So let me, Guohan, let me tell you, the reconciliation also, see, how does the flow reconciliation, right? Whatever that controller is going to do, it's not like as soon as switchover happens, it's going to happen. The controller, there is some heuristics that the controller is going to do. I mean, that is how Microsoft is doing, obviously, but there is some heuristics where they have to figure out that after switchover, let's say node 1, node 2 goes down, node 2 takes over, node 1 goes down, sorry, node 1 goes down, node 2 takes over. It's not like it can come and say you can reconcile immediately now, right? Based on some heuristics, they will figure out that node 2 has caught up to the config level of node 1, and then from now on, connections can be fixed up. I mean, connections can be reconciled, right? But during the time before that can happen, there are packets that are hitting node 2, and they have to be switched. You cannot switch them with old configuration. You have to switch them with the right configuration.
are you talking about the unplanned or planned?
Both planned or unplanned, right? See, so let me say what I'm saying, right? So node 1, node 2,
so
there is a connection.
maybe unplanned. I get, maybe at that point of time, the standby is not up to date. But for the planned, before the switchover, why can't the backup one get up to dated and then do the switch? Why we cannot prepare the standby node to be to be fully prepared before we switch over?
No,
Would
you
we
can
be
do.
eating into bandwidth at that point, like unnecessarily?
What do you mean by that? I don't get that point. I mean,
I
No,
guess it's just a
if
choice.
it's a planned, right? So you planned
Planned,
carefully.
yeah. Okay.
You make your standby ready, fully ready before you're taking traffic.
No, you can in as part of planned, you can basically you can say as part of the planned switchover, you can do the reconcile also. But the challenge is that basically the configuration is continuously changing. While you are doing reconcile, I mean, if you try to defer the planned switchover, wherein you don't do it similar to what do you call the unplanned switchover, right? Where you keep both of them and you do reconcile to node 2, and then you basically let node 2 to take over for traffic from node 1. There is always possibility of while you are doing reconcile on node 2, configuration change can be happening on node 1 and it gets updated.
Why we're making this problem already a challenging problem even more challenging? Why we're saying, okay, during the switchover, the primary can still updating the policy? Why we cannot say, okay, during the switchover, I assume it's just several seconds, right? So switchovers, can we stop updating the primary? Why is that?
Yeah, so that is what we also asked Microsoft. We wanted to actually basically defer the config update during that time, but the requirement that came from Microsoft is that they don't want to defer config update for a long time. They want it to be activated quickly. So
Yeah, long
that is
time.
what.
How long? I mean, what's our switchover SLA here? Like tens of seconds? Is that a long time, or? I mean, I'm trying to understand. I mean, I'm part of the Microsoft, but I don't understand this. This specific requirement.
This may have come
Yeah,
from the SDN team,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you can check with the exact time duration. Go on with the SDN team, but at least to us, that is what that was told, that we should not defer the update for a long time. That's what that was told.
Yeah, I must say it also sounds weird to me because it's a few tens of ENIs. I don't think that there won't be a point in time where we don't have like 2 minutes to switch, or we cannot delay for 2 minutes.
But isn't that true that with the approach where you update the connection based on the data packet, back to the question that Guohan asked earlier, you don't have a deterministic way of saying you already apply all the configuration, right? The controller have no way of knowing that before initiate a plan that fails because of the approach, the data plan driven approach.
because it's driven by the packet.
Isn't that really the case? Yeah.
No,
so
but
basically, let's say a configuration change happened that impact 1 million entry, right? But we don't have a deterministic way of saying this 1 million entry will complete the processing because we depend on the packet coming in on those million entries. So from the controller point of view, how would it know that the configuration already applied before it initiate a plan that fell over?
no, again, this is, let's say, this is very implementation
No. Okay,
specific.
no. I guess I guess the Microsoft pose a requirement saying, okay, the, control plan, I don't have SL to guarantee them to synchronize, right? So then MD help me to figure out what can you do to, you just use the data plan to do the synchronize. Then the MD say, okay, hey, let me try my best to do the data plan synchronization. Use whatever technology I can do to do that, right? So, and assuming that there's no guarantee on the control plan to get synchronized, between the primary and backup. I mean, it seems that that is a solid process.
But
Gerald,
we
do
do
you
have the same
recall
problem for
the-
the unplanned switchover also, right?
Say it again. Sorry.
We do have to solve that problem for the unplanned switchover anyway.
I mean, I think the unplanned switchover and this planned switchover, there's a definitely different SLA, right? So we
No, but there is a requirement even in the unplanned switchover, there is a requirement that when we switch over, we should not be going back in config. We should still be following the same. The data forwarding should be the same as what it was before. It should not change.
I see.
I guess what you're saying is solving it for unplanned automatically solves it for planned also.
Yeah, so we have to solve it for unplanned anyway. So I think we just inherited that for unplanned as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one argument. I get that part, right? So, yeah. So for the unplanned, then you probably have a different configuration at that point of time, and then if that happens, then your data plan schema will be able to do this full synchronization.
Yeah,
right?
so that is a basic requirement for HA that I think we're all agreed already on the fact that both primary and standby should have the same should have the flows from the same config based off of the same config. I think that was already agreed upon, and so that's what makes this when we do the flow sync, we need to carry the metadata with the policy results and all from the primary to the secondary.
Okay.
Do you
so
carry
the
the configuration versioning?
Yeah.
Do you carry the configuration versioning that you set on the ENI to standby?
So those are all implementation details. I think. So I think from the requirements and the approach point of view, the approach is that we carry all the policy results in such a way that, however, the data path is set up, right? In such a way that when forwarding happens on the primary or the secondary after switchover, there should be no difference.
Yeah, speaking of
that,
this,
that is the approach.
Speaking of this, vendor implementation or implementation specific detail or optional thing and so forth. So I just want to step back a little bit, with Marian's comment as well as, with Guohan's comment. So, I mean, of course, we don't have the time left for today, but at least, maybe we can do it in the next session. But I don't want to touch on this one is that, whatever we're talking about, optional or whatever be the case, what I see here is there's clearly a change in the lookup, right? Based on, so there is a pipeline change in terms of, okay, there is a version number that you have to match against whenever you see the packet between the version number that is stored in the connection versus the version number with the ENI. And then, based on it, you decide whether you go through the slow path or fast path and so forth. So this processing, the packet processing that is happening clearly changes this, the pipeline processing. And then there may be also an impact on how we are going to have the SAI, the APIs and so forth, because the fact that when the configuration changes, sorry?
There's one comment there. So this versioning and all is not part of the proposal. So that each vendor can implement it the way they want it, right? So
yeah, exactly.
The approach is just saying that you need to sync up your whatever lookup results that you have in your data path, so that on both sides you forward the packet the same way. That's all the proposal says.
Right.
And that AMD was just presenting what they're doing, and that doesn't mean everyone has to do it the same way.
Yeah, that ties in with Marian's
would
comment
that not mean that you will have a different SAI API also, like in terms of, where you have to...
no, it's only the SAI implementation. No, it's only the SAI implementation that changes, right? The SAI API need not change for this. Because this is all underneath that's happening in the implementation itself.
I see. So you probably...
So that's why the proposal says that it's a metadata, so that it's an opaque field.
Okay.
So the vendors can choose to put whatever they want in there.
I see. But what it really means here is that, Mukesh, is that you are maintaining certain state in the SI implementation, which says that whenever the configuration change, I have to bump up the version number when I'm programming certain things in my pipeline, and that's the state that you're maintaining in your SI implementation. Although it's not part of it. Right?
Yeah, that's all part of the implementation. That's right.
I mean, I would rather we have the SI as a stateless implementation, but that's fine. If you are basically have this implementation in there, then that's fine. For the sake of really keeping things simple outside, I'm okay with it. Okay, thanks.
But
And-
it's a full state synchronization, right? So then I think at least the document need to define clearly on what are the lookup results, right? So because I think it's not quite clear, what are all the lookup results. I mean that's not the implementation specific, right? So that's not the
latest
that is a requirement part. What are the lookup results?
I think the latest update to the pull request added what are the elements that are synchronized. I thought that was added.
Is that a full set?
There are 4 points.
Can you, Christina, can you go back to that?
Yeah, sure. And I know we're a little bit over on time, guys. Sorry. So here's the PR here, and what exactly am I looking for?
You can search for state synchronized. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that paragraph. Sync.
And so the results.
Yeah, I think it has listed what is synchronized and what is not. Yeah.
Rewrite and metering class here.
Yeah.
Do you want more, Guohan?
So okay, so here, right? So I think JR, I think this might be a problem for the interoperability, right? So because if we're saying that okay, we define those some things and but yeah, and we do not define in a packet format, then there's no way that two vendor can interop with each other. Should we get them explicitly defined somewhere? Because currently I think that's a problem.
Yeah,
no, Guohan. No, but Guohan,
ahead.
initially when we talked about this, I think we wanted basically at the data path level, it can there is no this thing, right? I mean, we didn't want to have the data path compatibility, right?
No.
Yeah,
I think
I think interoperability was not a goal.
Sorry, guys. Gerald, go ahead.
I think we did talk about, hey guys, I think what we did talk about was that from the start, we wanted the control path to be interoperable. And then the data path, it looked like a bit hard to start off with interoperability there. So things like perfect sync could be done in the slow path, and that should have been interoperable. But however, we did talk about not insisting on the data path being interoperable on day one because everybody has a different approach and it just didn't seem reasonable.
Yeah, but I mean that's I guess that not on day one, but shouldn't we at least try that and list it out so that we have a base version? Then people can start because currently if we're not basically we're not doing any front on that data path synchronization interoperability, right? So you just to say okay, you need to think this and that, and it's not clear, it's not defined in packet format, so then people basically wouldn't be able to try that, right? So but if we have some proposal to define that, at least people can have a look at it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having a proposal to define it for sure, and because people can learn from it.
Yeah. So
even if we don't deploy interoperable day one, they can still learn from it and build.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. Okay, so is this CMD can take action on it to define it?
Well, AMD can make proposals. Anyone else can make proposals. Is that what you want the community to do, Guohan, is to define it?
Yeah, I think the MD, they have the control plan proposal, right? So can they also work on the data plan, at least to define it, so we can take a look at it?
I guess it's not clear to us because we have listed what needs to be synchronized, and then the rest is
packet
all
format. The packet
what we
format,
actually,
right? So yeah.
No, but what we synchronize is basically proprietary data from our P4 tables and stuff like that, right? Which so
also,
yeah, it's not clear what would go into the packet.
Also,
as a
Guohan,
standard way.
Yeah, also imposing that on the data path. See, data path, the way the messages are designed, it's like trying to optimize the way the data path is operating, right? I mean, I don't know if you want to impose a standard structure and interoperability at that level, right?
Yeah,
talk about that
we currently do not impose, right? So, but at least I think we need to, have something that the community can take a look at, right? So otherwise, right? So we're not going to do any data plan, interoperability, and then there's no way to do data plan interoperabilities. So there's no way to do because purely control plan interoperability that is not sufficient, right? So if we ever want to do those interoperability things, right? So there's basically if without data plan, there's no way to do it. So therefore, I suggest that we can at least get a version and then discuss it, and then people can see whether we can do it or not, right? So because currently we do not have one, and then we don't know whether people can because I know now a lot of devices have programmabilities. So if we don't have a proposal, how do we know that people cannot do it?
Yeah, I guess what we are saying is, I think in the document, what the state is, all the data that is synchronized is mentioned in the document, but the actual format might not be something which is widely acceptable or widely useful also, because it
That we
purely
don't know,
depends on.
right? So can we get a proposal and people can look at it?
No, but Guohan, the reason for that proposal is you want to interoperate different vendor implementations. Is that what is the goal for this exercise?
Exactly.
No, I thought, but we started with an exercise of basically having some of the common aspects of it move to the sonic layer, right? That is how, like the FSM and the bulk sync, that kind of aspects to be moved to sonic, right? So that that implementation doesn't have to be repeated in others, but not necessarily interoperating different. I mean, pairing different vendor implementations.
So that's
right?
original goal, right? So that's original goal. I mean, yes, but I think as Jared mentioned, right, so at least we should try it, right? So because if we, currently if we do not present it, I mean, do not have a proposal, then there's no way to try it, right? So at least I think we can get the packet format and people can look at to see whether there's a possibility to do the interop, right? So
yeah, it could be that the messages is written in such a way that there's kind of mandatory information, and then there's some opaque information that gives people freedom to send different metadata from their control point, something like that. But looking at the mandatory kind of information might be the way to start, like in order to get the thought process going.
Yeah, that's good.
And then you could argue, oh, but to optimize, I'm going to send this opaque stuff too. And okay, so then the message format should be flexible enough to be able to handle that. And then people can explain why they need that other information to us or somebody else. But we can start with a mandatory, like the things that make common sense that you need to send across. So then people can kind of dissect, is this scheme working? Like, does it work overall? Like, does all the stuff that you guys been discussing, that you have something to look at. I would at least try to think of it that way, and not think of it as, oh, I can't send my metadata anymore, and geez, it would have been so much more optimal. I don't think we would want to block that, but there must be some subset that's mandatory.
Maybe we can pick that up in the next call, guys. It's 15 after.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
What do you
Sure.
think, Doug?
I mean, it's definitely very interesting topic. Yeah. So yeah, we can
I want to thank Balki for today's presentation. Really good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely, Balki.
Yeah.
I know you probably weren't expecting to, cover. So thank you very much.